My wife left a note. Don't look for me. I need freedom. So I didn't. I filed for divorce, froze the accounts, and went on vacation. 3 days later, she was waiting outside my lawyer's office in tears. I, 38 male, and the note was sitting on the polished granite of our kitchen island, weighted down by her house key. Not the front door key, I noticed, but the specific one for the back door, the one she always used. A small, deliberate detail. It was 4 sentences long, written in her neat, looping cursive that always looked so at odds with her personality. I need to be on my own for a while. This isn't working for me anymore. I need freedom. Don't look for me. No, I'm sorry. No, I love you, but just a clinical statement of departure. For a moment, I did nothing. I just stood there in the silent kitchen, the scent of the coffee she'd made before she left still hanging in the air. I looked around at the life we had built. The custom-tiled backsplash we'd argued over for weeks. The ridiculously expensive Scandinavian armchair in the corner that was supposed to be her reading chair, though she mostly just threw her coat on it. It all felt like a stage set for a play that had just abruptly ended. There was no screaming, no throwing things. The grief was there, a cold, heavy stone in my gut, but it was accompanied by something else, a strange, unnerving calm. Lauren had always been the impulsive one, the one prone to dramatic gestures and pronouncements. In her grand gesture, she'd forgotten the fundamental difference between us. She makes scenes, and I make plans. I picked up my phone. My first call was not to her mother or her best friend or any of our mutual acquaintances. It was to a man named Walter Chen, the most ruthless divorce attorney I could find on short notice with a 5-star Google rating. He specialized in complex asset division. I booked an appointment for the following Monday. My second call was to my bank. I explained that my debit card had been compromised. A small lie, but effective. They immediately put a temporary freeze on our joint checking and savings accounts, pending my in-person visit to sort it out. I had a separate personal account she didn't know about, my what-if fund. It wasn't much, but it was enough. My third action was to go to my closet. Her side was half empty. She'd taken her favorite things, the expensive pieces, but she'd left behind the dress she wore on our first date and all the framed photos of us on her nightstand. More telling, she'd left her muddy Adidas sneakers, the ones she wore for her weekend runs, right in the middle of the new rug I'd just bought. A final, thoughtless act of disrespect. I had 2 weeks of vacation time approved. I'd planned a solo hiking trip for months, something Lauren had called boring and refused to join. I packed a bag, grabbed my hiking boots, and placed her note in the top drawer of my desk. I took one last look around the house, the silence no longer feeling like a void, but like an opportunity. Then I walked out, locked the front door, and went on my vacation. I didn't look for her. She asked for freedom. I was giving it to her, with footnotes and legal counsel. Update. The mountain air was clean and sharp. For 3 days I hiked until my legs ached and my lungs burned. I didn't check my phone much. There were a few frantic texts from her friends, then a string of increasingly panicked ones from Lauren herself. They went from indignant, "Are you seriously ignoring me?" to confused, "Why isn't my card working?" I read them, felt a flicker of something, not guilt, but a sad confirmation, and then put the phone away. I drove back Monday morning, showered at a truck stop, and put on the suit I'd packed. I felt more clear-headed than I had in years. When I pulled up to Walter Chen's law office, a discreet modern building in a quiet part of town, I saw her. Lauren. She was sitting on the low brick wall that bordered the manicured landscaping, her head in her hands. She was wearing the same clothes she'd had on in her last Instagram post from 2 days ago. A post I'd glanced at with morbid curiosity, captioned, "Finally free," featuring a clinking cocktail glass and an unseen companion. The chic freedom seeker from the photo was gone. Today she looked frayed. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were red and swollen, and there were tear tracks cutting through her foundation. She saw my car and shot to her feet. "Nathan." I got out of the car and looked at her. I didn't say a word. "Nathan, what the hell is going on?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "My card was declined. At a hotel. It was so humiliating. And the joint savings, it's frozen. I tried to call the bank and they said you reported a security breach." "What is that?" I adjusted my tie. "It's a security breach, Lauren. Our financial security has been breached. Her face, a mask of tearful confusion, hardened. That's not funny. This is our money. I needed that money. I had plans. I'm sure you did, I said, my voice even. I started walking towards the office door. She scurried to keep up, her tone shifting from anger to a kind of desperate pleading. Okay, look, maybe I should have talked to you, she said, grabbing my arm. I stopped and looked down at her hand until she let go. But I was suffocating. I needed space. A break. That's all this was. A little break to clear my head. And I come back to this? You hired a lawyer? I saw the email confirmation on the tablet. A divorce lawyer, Nathan. Are you insane? This was the moment that crystallized everything. She hadn't left me. She had just put me on pause, expecting me to wait patiently in the wings until she decided she was done with her break. The sheer, blinding entitlement of it was almost impressive. You left a note, Lauren, I said, my voice dangerously soft. It said, don't look for me. It didn't say, I'll be back on Monday, please have the accounts liquid and my laundry done. You wanted freedom. I'm just formalizing it. Formalizing it? She shrieked, tears starting anew. You can't just divorce me. We have to talk about it. We have to go to therapy. You don't just blow up our life. You detonated the bomb, Lauren, I replied, turning my back to her. I'm just picking through the rubble. I opened the heavy glass door to the law firm. The last thing I heard as it swished shut behind me was her sobbing my name. A question laced with a dawning, horrified understanding. Update. A week of blessed silence was broken by a phone call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was from a man. His voice was smooth, confident, the kind of voice that's used to getting its way. Nathan, this is Kyle. Listen, I think we got off on the wrong foot here. Lauren is obviously very upset and you're not being rational. Why don't you and I have a man-to-man chat and figure this out? Give me a call. Kyle. I knew the name. He was a senior manager from her marketing department, the one she'd laughed with a little too long at the company Christmas party. The one whose name had popped up in late-night texts I'd pretended not to see. I didn't call him back. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail audio file to Walter Chen with the subject line, "For the file." The next evening, they appeared at my door. I saw them through the peephole, Lauren standing slightly behind Kyle, who had his hand possessively on her lower back. He looked exactly as I'd pictured, expensive haircut, smug expression, wearing a jacket that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He rang the doorbell with a sharp, impatient jab. I opened the door a few inches, leaving the security chain on. Yes? Kyle's smile was pure condescension. Nathan. Good, we need to talk. I'm talking to my lawyer, I said. You should have Lauren talk to hers. Now see, that's the kind of attitude that's making this so difficult, he said, trying to lean into the doorway. The chain held. Lauren is willing to be reasonable. She's willing to come home, to let you calm down, and we can all sort this out like adults. We? I asked, looking past him at Lauren, who refused to meet my eyes. There is no we. There's you, and there's me, and she made her choice. Lauren finally spoke, her voice thin. Nathan, please, he's just trying to help. This has all been a huge misunderstanding. Just let me in so I can get my things. Your things will be handled by our attorneys, I said flatly. Then I looked her in the eye. Besides, the key you left wouldn't have worked anyway. Her brow furrowed in confusion. What are you talking about? The locks were changed the morning I left for my trip, I said. You vacated the property. You have no legal right to be here. Kyle scoffed, his charm curdling into aggression. Don't be an ass. This is her home. We just need to get her passport and some of her clothes. Then her lawyer can send my lawyer a formal request, I said, and began to close the door. Kyle's hand shot out, pushing against it. You're gonna regret this. I can make things very difficult for you. The threat hung in the air. It was clumsy, stupid, and the best gift he could have given me. I looked him dead in the eye. Is that a threat, Kyle? He faltered just for a second. It's advice. I'll add it to the file, I said, and closed the door. I heard them muttering outside for a few minutes before their footsteps retreated. That night, the quiet of the house felt different. Heavier. The stone in my gut was back. I walked into my home office and powered up our old shared desktop computer. I'd never had a reason to be suspicious before. Or maybe I'd chosen not to be. It didn't take long. She hadn't even bothered to delete her browser history. There it was. Hotel bookings, restaurant reservations, and a private Instagram chat log between her and Kyle going back 6 months. It was all there. The deception, the planning, the casual cruelty, comments about my predictability, jokes about the boring life she was about to escape. The final message from her, sent the morning she left. Note is on the counter. Freedom awaits. See you at the hotel in an hour. K3. I methodically took screenshots of everything, every single message. I saved them to a thumb drive, labeled it leverage, and emailed a copy to Walter. The grief was still there, but now it had a hard, sharp edge. It was turning into fuel. Update. The next month was a masterclass in bureaucratic fallout. I didn't have to be a mastermind. I just had to be organized and tell the truth. First, the house. We were renting, with an option to buy that I had been saving for. The lease was up for renewal. When the landlord called, I explained the situation simply. Lauren has permanently vacated the premises as of this date. I have a signed, handwritten note from her confirming this. I would like to renew the lease in my name only. I emailed him a picture of the note. He was a reasonable man who hated complications. He drew up a new lease for me alone. A week later, Lauren called me hysterical. The landlord said I'm not on the lease. He said if I try to enter the property, he'll call the police. You can't do that, Nathan. My name has been on that lease for 5 years. You abandoned the lease, Lauren, I said, repeating the words Walter had coached me to use, and my lawyer has the documentation to prove it. Second, the social fallout. I didn't badmouth her to our friends. I didn't have to. Her and Kyle's behavior did all the work. They were now an official public couple. They started posting photos together at expensive dinners on weekend trips. It looked desperate, a frantic performance of happiness. Meanwhile, the news of her break and my immediate divorce filing had spread. People can do the math. I got a call from a mutual friend, Kelly. Hey, I'm so sorry about all this, she said, her voice hesitant. Honestly, it's all anyone at her office is talking about. It's gotten really awkward. People are taking sides. It turned out Kyle was married too, a fact Lauren had apparently not been privy to. His own divorce was now underway, and it was significantly messier and more public than ours. The perfect corporate couple was imploding under the weight of their own drama. The financial pressure was the real kicker. Without access to the joint accounts, Lauren was entirely dependent on Kyle. And Kyle, it seemed, was not as wealthy as his blazer suggested. His assets were tied up in his own marital home. The pinnacle of their desperation came in the form of a late-night voicemail from Lauren. It was a rambling, tearful monologue about a vacation we took 5 years ago, full of, "Remember how happy we were, and I don't know how we got here." It ended with, "Anyway, I know things are weird right now, but I really need my half of the $2,850 security deposit from the landlord. Can you just zell it to me?" The audacity was breathtaking. I didn't reply. The next day, her new lawyer, a much cheaper, less effective one than her first, sent Walter an email demanding the immediate release of personal funds. Walter's reply was a work of art. It was brief, professional, and utterly devastating. It stated that all marital assets were frozen pending a final judgment, that any further communication should be between counsel, and as a final flourish, attached a single, password-protected PDF file. The file was named Kyle. It contained the first 10 pages of their Instagram DMs. The requests for money stopped immediately. Final update. 6 months after I found the note, it was over. The divorce was finalized last week. It wasn't a shouting match in a courtroom. It was a series of quiet, brutal negotiations between our lawyers. Walter Chen was worth every penny. He presented our case with cold, undeniable facts. Lauren's premeditated infidelity, her documented abandonment of the marital home, and Kyle's clumsy attempt at intimidation. The final settlement was not a 50-50 split. The state we live in has a clause that allows for fault-based asset division under specific circumstances, and Walter argued that her actions constituted financial dissipation and deliberate abandonment. She walked away with her personal belongings, which I had meticulously boxed up and put in storage, the car her parents had bought her, and a small, court-ordered portion of the joint savings. The final piece fell into place with the house. Since I had renewed the lease in my name alone, and Lauren had legally vacated, the option to buy from our original lease was solely mine to exercise. The down payment I'd been carefully building in my personal account was untouched in the proceedings. Last month, I sat across from the landlord, now the seller, and signed the purchase papers. The house is mine now, earned and secured not by what I had before we met, but by how I handled what came after she left. The fallout for them was, from what I've gathered, exactly what you'd expect. Lauren and Kyle are still together, living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a less than desirable part of the city. Their combined finances are a disaster. His messy divorce drained him, and her freedom came at a much higher price than she anticipated. Kelly told me that the atmosphere at their workplace is toxic. They were both passed over for promotions they were expecting. Apparently, senior leadership doesn't appreciate employees who create HR nightmares and air their dirty laundry all over the office. Their performance of blissful happiness on social media has ceased. The most satisfying moment for me came unexpectedly. I was sitting on my new sofa last Tuesday, enjoying the silence, when I got an email from Spotify. "Your password has been changed." I hadn't changed it. I realized Lauren had still been using our family plan, a tiny, insignificant tether that I hadn't even remembered to cut. I logged in, saw her profile was still there, and with a few clicks, removed her from the plan and reset the password again. It felt like changing a lock I didn't know was still open. A small final click of a door closing. I don't hate her. I don't think about her much at all, to be honest. Hate is a hot emotion, and what I feel now is the cool indifference of a resolved issue. The house doesn't feel like a stage set anymore. It feels like home. My home. I painted the kitchen a deep, calming blue. Her Scandinavian chair is gone, replaced by a bookshelf filled with books I've always wanted to read. Sometimes late at night, I allow myself to feel the ghost of that pain, the memory of the man who stood in a silent kitchen reading a 4-sentence note. I acknowledge his hurt, but his pain fueled a quiet resolve, a methodical path forward. Lauren and Kyle will likely spend years blaming me for their problems, casting me as the villain who refused to play the part of the distraught, forgiving husband. They will never understand that I didn't seek revenge. I simply got out of the way and let the consequences of their own choices catch up to them. I just held the door open and let justice serve itself.